Thank you for joining me today to talk about driving continual improvement with ERP. My name is Scott Beaton, and I'm a practice leader in Grant Thornton's consulting group, working primarily in operational transformation. I'd also like to thank the Answer Company for inviting me to speak today. When we work with the Answer Company, we know we're working with an organization like our own. There's a lot of senior team involvement in the projects. We know that they, like us, are focused on the ultimate value for our clients and driving that through the solutions that are designed. And ultimately, outside of the work we do ourselves, we have a shared vision of helping our clients, colleagues, and communities thrive. And these things are really important to us when we look to work with a partner on delivering solutions. I'd like to quickly take you through our agenda. We're going to talk today about the shifting role of business leaders in 2021 and beyond. And talk about how we can solve problems by engaging people on every level of an organization. Go back to basics. Why did we implement an ERP? Why did we want to upgrade? And talk about what happens at day zero from that new change or that new implementation, and where do we go from here? And then we'll talk about developing a solid framework to build the guardrails around that and keep the momentum up to drive value out of solutions for a business. At the end of the day, business is really just about people. We can talk about technology, we can talk about the products that we sell, but really it's about people. And I say that even when we're talking about businesses in pet supplies, for example. The pets are important, but ultimately the people, the customers, the vendors, that's what's really important. And to help a business run, leaders need to gather information. They need to be connecting that information to the right people at the right time to get the best solutions. And 50 years ago, that, or even 5 to 10 years ago, when we're talking about one client we recently dealt with, that was done by driving around in a pickup truck and shaking the hands of every employee and delivering the checks by hand. But business today moves too fast. Changes can happen in a heartbeat that wipe out margins. New industries are created in a moment, and some are wiped away. And to deal with that, we need to have that information at everybody's fingertips as fast as we can. It's no longer that a handshake will do the job. In many companies, the information source has always been the finance department, and that was financial information. But the expectations for data in organizations in 2021 have grown tremendously. Beyond financial, it's about marketing information, sales information, operations, human resources. How do we get that right data? How do we test the sentiment of our customers, of the market, and where things are moving? How do we know how our people feel? Tying this all together, there was a CFO survey that we sent out where it said 70% of finance departments were looking at implementing key emerging technologies to gather that information to drive better insights in real time. Beyond that, the survey also found that the two most sought after skills were data analytics and application development. Application development in a finance department, that was a surprise. That was a new addition. And that's because we're talking about quickly building solutions and not waiting months or years to plan out big development. It's not enough for companies, of course, to build a finance out solution to data and information, and it's not enough to do a top-down approach. It really starts at the front line. It starts with the people who are closest to the problems. We can't drive rapid improvement in an organization without the buy-in of the people who have to do the work. But more importantly, we'll struggle to figure out what problems we even need to resolve unless we ask the right questions and engage them. But of course, it's not enough just to ask our people, tell us what you're seeing, what can we improve on? We actually need to create the environment where they feel safe to share that information, where they know that they're driving towards a purpose that they believe in, and where they feel like they belong in the organization, that this is a part of them, that they are a part of it. When we do that, we start to build ownership, which leads to the innovation that we're looking for and the improvements we can find. In return, a business can get some game-changing insights. But what does that really look like? Some examples of that are the simple workflows that can be used to drive out better intelligence or streamline processes in order to cash, procure to pay. How can we take those things that people are doing every day and automate the menial parts so that everybody is focused on adding the best value that they can? There's also the big items. How do we look at opportunities to integrate e-commerce or customer portals or vendor portals so we can get better intelligence in the market and take out a lot of the activity of people on inside the business. When we design better solutions that come from the front line of the organization, we get more buy-in, which means we actually can move faster from idea to solution. We spoke before about that CFO survey and wanting to add application development skills to their team. What does that really look like? That's local solutions. So, how do we take the team and fix the process that 90% of the organization doesn't even know is happening, but might be using 20% of somebody's time? And doing that when it doesn't have global impact, do we need to bring a big team to the table to solve that problem? Or can we do this rapidly within a small, rapid solution team and tapping one or two people from a vendor to support? When it's got a global impact, of course, then we do need to put in bigger guardrails and make sure that we do consult across the organization. But ultimately, if we don't engage in the front line, we can't move fast or find the right solution. I want to take a step back because we're talking a little bit about engaging our team to drive solutions, but why did we get an ERP in the first place? Well, take a moment and think back to when you first started exploring a new enterprise resource planning system, or the last time you had a major upgrade. What did you want to accomplish? What were you excited about? Where did you think you were going to get out of this system? Because ultimately, when we started to work through a process of implementing, there's a lot of work, requirements development, solution design, engaging stakeholders. There's challenges that need to be overcome. And sometimes it can be a long and tiring process. And by the time we get to the end, we're just getting to the point where we get a lot of value out of that first time we turn it on. But there's so much more that we wanted to get after. What were those things? But more importantly, I want you to think back to the energy and enthusiasm on the team at that point. Who is driving that energy, and what are they thinking today? Where are those opportunities? Do we still have the drivers? If not, how do we get those people to drive again? I'm going to talk about a few areas here where we see a lot of opportunity with the right data and the right systems. The classic story here is the sales versus procurement problem. If we're measuring success and we're looking at gross margin as an example, how do we attribute success in gross margin towards the actions that we've taken? Which team is responsible for driving an increase or a decrease in margins? Really, the answer is twofold. There's at least two, if not more, teams involved in that. We've got the pricing decision on the one hand and the purchasing on the other. So are we buying better than we were before? Are we pricing our sales better than we were before? And those are two different questions. And when we're talking to industries that don't have stable pricing in the market, where there's a lot of volatility, so think commodity products or highly competitive industries with a lot of players, that price can change rapidly. That cost to buy can change rapidly. And so we can't rely on a simple discount model to understand how we're winning or losing in this realm. We've got to look to other solutions, like an index approach, and taking a basket of goods that we sell and measuring them at different intervals to see, are we trending in the right direction? More importantly, we can actually make better pricing decisions when we have the right intelligence at hand. Putting the intelligence in the hands of our teams, we just need to set that framework and let the teams pull the levers, and then learn from what we've done and decide how we can improve. I'm going to talk through 5 areas of scientific pricing and some of those data elements that we need, but try to overlay some stories that matter here. There are 5 elements of pricing: cost, customer, competition, capacity, and conditions. First, cost. Why does it matter? If you're thinking because we're going to find the cost and add a percent and that's our price, we're missing a huge opportunity here. Cost is really just our lowest threshold, and this is, do we enter or exit the market that we're in? I've got some thoughts here on data that we need to do better costing, but ultimately with the systems today, we can calculate real time beyond just the gross margins and start to attribute cost of our overheads and our facility costs and indirect, and apply those to understand what it truly costs to deliver a service, and start to segment customers and products and understand how well we're performing in those areas. And I think of this in a clothing retailer that we wholesaler that we worked with, and they had 2 major customers, one that had low margins and the other that had high margins on the face of it. But once we broke down the activity levels and the structure of how they actually pick, packed, and ship product, it was flipped on its head. And the low margin customer was actually the one that made them all their money, and the other one lost them all of that and then some. And so building that into our systems real time can help teams make better decisions about pricing. The upper threshold is actually customer themselves. What's the value to them? What is it worth when they turn around and sell the end product? Or how does this improve their business, depending on what we're selling? And this is a value, benefit, price conversation. We can build that data in real time and start to understand, what is a customer forecasting? Where do they see their demand coming from? What does their value chain look like? And how are their margins by product? We can start to look at historical trends and buying patterns and understand how that will impact when different market shifts happen. What are those correlations that tell us that they're going to be buying more or less over a different period of time? And how does that impact the ultimate value to them and influence that upper level of what we can charge? But all of this is influenced by the market and the competitors. So how do we differentiate in the market? And I think here in the forestry industry, where we think it's pretty hyper competitive, when we actually break down the value proposition that different sawmills, for example, can provide based on the type of logs that they can cut, based on the market value of that product, we learn even in a market that seems highly commoditized, there's incredible differentiation. And when we know that differentiation and start to pull in competitive information, including products and features, the pricing and volume, and get some early warning data when the market starts to shift, then we can use that to help guide how close to that upper end of customer value can we be, or how low do we need to go around our cost marker when we actually set that price. But the most overlooked aspect of all of this is capacity, because at the end, if we can't service our customers, if we've got more orders than we have volume to fill, or ability to fill and throughput, then that should be influencing our pricing decisions as well. Because likely, if we're facing capacity constraints, our competitors are facing capacity constraints, and that means there's an overall economic push, and there's a cost to that. So we need to account for that in a pricing decision. Some of those things we can pull into systems today. We've got vendor lead times, right? Throughput analysis, schedules and forecasts, and labor utilization. And it's not to overwhelm our people with all of these different elements, but if we can highlight the key metrics that matter, we can, again, put that in the hands of the people who are signing that contract or setting up that schedule for a new sale, and say, yeah, it would be great to serve you, but we're overloaded, and therefore here are the options that we have available for how we can get you what you need and the time you need it. And oftentimes that's going to impact price. And then finally, of course, conditions, economic and market data, whether that's operational volumes, again to the forestry industry example, looking at pricing in the market, looking at volumes in the market, and seeing where does that look like it's going to trend. Do we think that the price of lumber is going to stay high for a long time? Therefore, do we have a strong long-term competitive position to increase pricing, or is this a short-term blip where we want to be a little bit more cautious? And building that in, and overall, you can take these metrics and put them into tools that guide our people to make stronger decisions, and that's where a lot of value comes in. But I want to flip to the other side as well, which is purchasing. And purchasing and demand planning are really about two elements. How do we forecast what our customers are going to need? And really, that sometimes feels like blindfold throwing a dart, right? We don't know what our customers are ultimately going to do. But if we can engage better, understand our customers and the variance, when they make a forecast, are they pretty accurate 3 months out? Or are they only accurate when they're about 1 month out? Or do they not really know what they're going to do until they put in the order? And different customers have different levels of forecast accuracy. So we can measure that, and we can use that to guide our decisions around what kind of product are we going to carry, how much will we carry. Based on our historical variance and our customer forecast today, can we build a better forecast? Once we have that and we know and we measure how well we forecasted in the past and improve upon that, we can build demand plans around that. When are we going to decide to put in place long-term contracts with regular buys? What are our minimum order values going to be? And how is that going to change based on the type of products that our customers are ordering and really how volatile we think those orders might be in the future? We certainly don't want to put in place big orders at low price for customers that have really volatile forecasts and buy everything 1 month from us and the next 2-3 months go buy from someone else. And we'll end up sitting holding that inventory. So we'll bring that back to what we're talking about today, which is enterprise resource planning. So that day zero, that moment that we install the new platform or we decide to upgrade should be the most exciting time. It's that moment when we get to turn back to the team and say, now we have it in place. What are the things that we can do with this to drive out results for our entire organization? How do we engage our teams to come up with rapid solutions? How do we use the data that we can now see to make better decisions? And this is the most exciting part to me, the most exciting part in the whole journey. I just want to take a moment to talk about what that really looks like in terms of guardrails. So obviously change controls and system changes are really important, making sure that no person can go in and disrupt the entire organization by trying to make a change. But that said, we still need to move fast. So take that agile approach to development. So putting a solid framework in place means building teams, cross-functional teams that have a cadence of meeting. They've got a list of priorities, things to implement, that they decide what happens with. They consult with stakeholders throughout the organization to understand what the impact would be. And where we don't have that global impact to the organization, let's move this through quickly. Where we do, let's make sure we've engaged the right stakeholders internally and externally, and then roll through that process from requirements analysis and design to development, testing, and deployment. I like the concept of continual improvement because continual improvement doesn't mean that we never stop improving. It means that periodically we make sure that we go back and look for areas where we can improve. And that's the difference between pretending that somehow we're always going to be better today than we were yesterday and realizing that at 3-month intervals we can take a look and reflect what worked, what didn't, and how can we do something better, and just make sure that there's a regular cadence to do that. And that really is business success. The business teams, the finance function in particular, should be supportive of transformation and incremental changes that improve the business. It's not about shooting the moon in the giant project. Once we have that system in place, it's about all the small wins along the way. How do we keep our teams energized? We've got to celebrate that, especially rewarding those on the front line who come forward even when things fail, or more importantly, when things don't work out. An idea that goes nowhere is just as valuable as an idea that does because it tells us a path we don't need to go down. And we should celebrate that just the same. Focusing on those quick hits, we can get a lot of progress. And when we look back 12 months, 18 months down the road and see that all those little things add up. Thank you for joining me today to talk about driving continual improvement through ERP. And I hope you've had a chance to enjoy some of the other talks throughout this conference. I know the Answer Company's put a lot of work to bring this all together, and I'd like to thank them again for doing that. If you have any other questions about what I talked about today, please feel free to reach out to the Answer Company and they can put you in contact. Thanks again.